Hello, welcome back to Desperate Living and part 2 of our continuing examination of a whole bunch of exciting, interesting and unusual new books to have arrived here at Desperate Living Towers. I say new, obviously these are very old books, but nevertheless they're new to me, so no hanging around, let's get back on with it. Starting with Heroes, Villains and Fools by Orrin E. Clapp, published in 1962, and a study of social stereotypes, where they fit in modern society and what they mean for American culture. So, and even comes with a VHS label bookmark. There you go. So a kind of vaguely entertaining, vaguely academic volume. It's another book I know a great deal about. It's got a fascinating cover, but certainly one to dig into and explore further. And from the same author, and on a vaguely similar subject, Symbolic Leaders, a hardcover edition from 1964. Let me quote, "Symbolic Leaders is a probing and provocative analysis of the process of public drama and of the actors who play the leading roles, discussed in terms of their significance for the structures of our rapidly changing society and illustrated by vivid case studies." Written by Professor Clapp, in case you hadn't guessed. So this is a study of public image, be it good, bad or ugly, how you fall into that, how you escape from it, how the rest of the world interprets it. So essentially, social sciences. Fascinating cover. I know very little about Orrin E. Clapp, but I'm sure I'll find out. In Defense of Women by H.L. Mencken. Slight bit of damage on the cover there. It's the price you have to pay for a lot of these things. This is Time Books, and do they give us an actual time of publication? That's the interesting thing. 1962 again. As you can see, the back cover is blank, so you really will be going into this unknown if you don't know anything about it. But this is a study of the feminine mind, the war of the sexes, equality, gender roles, and so on and so forth. It's quite nicely done visually. Curious volume. Let's see where that takes us. Perhaps a little bit more exciting is Gavin Arthur's The Circle of Sex. There's Mr. Arthur, and behind him is the circle. So, Gavin Arthur, Chester Alan Arthur III, a president's grandson and a millionaire's son. To see how others behaved, he took the name Gavin, worked his way around the world in the merchant marine, has been a confidant of prisoners and prostitutes. Well, he seems to have certainly lived the life. And this 1966 book it's kind of a sexology book that puts you as a certain type in the circle, as it says here. There is no normal, there is no male or female, no abnormal, bisexual. It's basically an opposite to the work of Kinsey. Clearly not one that caught on in the same way, although probably, you know, a more interesting, and we might say by modern standards perhaps a more progressive volume. Who knows? Well, I will soon. So this feels like the kind of book to potentially report back on at some future date. Sliding back into the world of woo-woo mysticism, my voice will go with you. The Teaching Tales of Milton H. Erickson. Who is Milton H. Erickson? He's a hypnotherapist. And what's he going to teach you? Well, how to improve your life, presumably through the powers of hypnotherapy, because if it's any other technique, then what would he really know? So this was published in 1983. Fairly recent. Picture of the author. This sort of thing does kind of fascinate me, even though I do find it all quite often a bit hard to swallow. Similarly, look into my eyes. How to use hypnosis to bring out the best in your sex life, which I should point out does not mean hypnotizing strange women to have sex with you. I'm guessing. But yeah, I'm not sure how hugely serious this is, given that this 2001 book, given that the back cover opens with the phrase, "You are getting sexy, very sexy." Well, yeah, looking for a way to lower sexual inhibitions, enhance physical sensations, have more fun with role play, or even get a bit more fun out of your lovemaking? Well, aren't we all? Hypnosis may be the answer. Yeah, it may be. Seems potential way to get yourself in court, but good old Coney Island. Let's go for something more innocent. A Sentimental Journey into the Past by Edo McCulloch. Coney Island, as you all know, is the rather rundown American sort of funfair resort area, you know, like the Blackpool of America, we might call it. Yeah, so this looks like it could be very entertaining stuff for those of us who have an interest in the fairground, the amusement park, the circus, the whole carny world. Now here's something that's fragile, unfortunately, so I'm not going to flick through it too much. Surrealism or cinema. Great picture on the back there from 13 Ghosts, and as you can see, it's a hefty volume, heavily illustrated. It is another book in French, so as I don't speak French, that's probably a good enough reason not to spend too much time reading it, but it is full of fantastic images. And what a glorious cover. Obviously, as you can see, it's a bit beaten up. I'm not sure how long this would hold together. Probably needs a bit of repair work doing to it. But nevertheless, looks brilliant. And another Surrealism book, the Phaidon Encyclopedia of Surrealism, slightly more recent vintage. So this dates from 1978, and is another very heavily illustrated book, given that the Surrealism movement was already a thing of the past by the time this book was published, then I imagine that it still remains a very worthwhile starter for anyone interested in the subject matter. You know, we probably know a little bit more about some people now than we did then, but I imagine as an examination of the artwork, then yeah, this is still very valid. Here's a whopping old book, The American Language, which is what you expect it to be. Actually, it's a guide to American English. So published in 1941, and as you can see, both very thick and very old. The actual pages haven't been trimmed, but it is essentially, yeah, a reference guide to the spelling, the pronunciation, the etymology, the development, and the variations of American English. This is the 4th edition, so not sure how many more were published after this, but it's contains 325,000 words of text running to 800 pages. Equally, there are probably ones that have slipped into disuse, ones that have changed over time. That's the way language goes. But yeah, again, it's a little bit wrecked, but given the age of it, that's fine. For those of you who don't want to use hypnosis as a way of getting it on, 1001 ways of kissing might be of use to you. Now, I have to say that I didn't quite think that there were 1001. Nevertheless, this 1962 book will, I'm guessing, take us through them all. Although, having said that, it has to do so in 114 pages. And yeah, you know, there's lots of stills. You might well consider that most of these ways of kissing that are illustrated are, you know, not only quite familiar to you, but also very similar from technique to technique. But you know, I guess if we count every minor variation as a slight difference, then yes, there might be 1001 ways. And of course, I'm being facetious. This is more like a kind of a guide to love, a guide to romance. So maybe not to be taken literally. So, scoresmanship, yes, the kind of book written for people who will probably never even experience one way of kissing. This is the kind of thing for people that we might now call pick-up artists or incels. Written in 1969, and yes, I mean it certainly seems thorough. It's kind of telling you what to do in your apartment, for instance. They're in chapter 11, which, you know, goes from music, visual approach, books, which books you should have on display. Well, obviously, according to this, you should have all books dealing with sex on display. Well, you know, that might work for you, might not. And also seems to be implying that you get your date drunk as quickly as possible. What can I say? It's of its time. Exhibitionism for the shy. by Carol Queen, the famed sexologist. This is from 1995, and it is basically a kind of a guide to improving your sex life and your self-esteem, I suppose, by making you more confident in your sexual exhibitionism. So, you know, it is literally about exhibitionism for the shy. So it shows you how to release your full erotic potential by tapping into every corner of your sensual soul. Turn sexual modesty to your erotic advantage, whether you're single, partnered, or in between. Well, there you go. I mean, I can see that. I can see the idea that by being a bit coy, you might get somewhere, and also that you can, you know, dress up, show off, and talk hot, as the cover suggests. I mean, Carol Queen was a great writer, and you know, one of those interesting figures who were around in the 1990s that we no longer seem to have, unfortunately. Very kind of sex positive feminism. So yeah, this looks great, as does this Taschen book on Carlo Melino, the fantastic photographer. Now let me see where we are here. Chunks of this will not be suitable for showing you on YouTube, but equally chunks of it will. I mean, you can see that he's one of those iconic erotic photographers from back in the day. In fact, Melino is one of those artists who not only have we already done something on the Desperate Living site, but who we should certainly be covering at some future point on this channel. So stay tuned. Now we have a trio of Henry Miller books. I've got quite a large collection of Henry Miller books already, so it's always just interesting to get new editions. This one, as you can see, is a bit faded on the cover. This one dates from 1934. There you go. No, it doesn't. Dates from 1963. I thought so. Yes, 1963 and 1934 original publication. Tropic of Cancer, one of his classic series. I do have other editions of this book, but always nice to have more. This one is actually a duplicate of Sexus that I already have, but you know, it's always handy to have a spare. This is 1969. Obviously, this edition is actually 1976. By the time you've gone through all the reprints. I'm a big fan of Henry Miller's work, and once again, he'll be a subject to get into at a later video. The Study of Rimbaud by Henry Miller. Interesting. This is one that I haven't owned before, so obviously not one of his fictional books, but nevertheless very interesting. Looks interesting cover. What date is this from? Yeah, 1984, so not particularly ancient. I don't know. It's a book from 1984 ancient? I guess it kind of is by this time. They always feel like it's just around the corner. Finally, for today, The Human Evasion by Celia Green. What, you might ask, is this? Well, it's published by the Institute of Psychophysical Research, so yes, we may be entering the areas of woo-woo once again. So this is from 1969, and it's an exploration of sanity, which is quite interesting. Beyond that, I'm not too sure. But if I just give you a few of the chapter titles, you might get an idea. The Genesis of Sanity, The Society of the Sane, How to Write Sane Books, The Sane Person Talks of Existence, The Sane Person Talks of God. Well, there you go. Interestingly, this edition comes with this pasted in page here, you can see. It's stuck on, which is an open letter to young people from the author. And on the assumption that there may at some point be one or two young people watching this video, God only knows why, let's help you out. To be a genius has never been too easy, granted the tendency of the human race to like frustrating them. It is no easier in this century than at any other time. In fact, it is rather more difficult, as in this century it is believed to be an unrecognized genius is impossible. It's a weird call to arms, actually. Yes, I have in Oxford a place in which it is possible to carry on the struggle for survival, and I am looking for people to join me. There are at present too few of us, I'll bet. And this makes the struggle for survival even more difficult. I cannot give a brief summary of my ideas. Well, yes, this book's only 126 pages long, so perhaps you need to be fairly brief, Celia. Anyway, let's continue. They are original, and that means they are difficult to communicate. Well, how convenient. However, I have written a book, The Human Evasion, which, while containing rather a small fraction of what I think, does give an introductory impression of my outlook. If you find this too uncongenial, I think you should not bother to get in touch with me to find out any more. Well, it seems a bit passive-aggressive. What it seems to be about is essentially mysticism, lucid dreaming, out-of-body experiences, and apparitions. So, effectively, more woo-woo. So that's a brief collection of a few other books. We've got one more pile to get through, and then we're done. For now. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you again soon.